I'm Bob Gaddy with Mark Bello, social justice lawyer and author of riveting, ripped from the headline novels covering some of the major issues of our times. Look up justice in the dictionary and you'll find something like just or fair behavior or treatment. In addition to hosting the Lean to the Left podcast, I co-host Mark's Justice Counts podcast, where the conversation goes beyond the law to issues that are important, like equal access and fair treatment for everyone. But today we're going to talk about Mark's latest books. He's been busy over the last few months, has won some new awards, and let's find out what's going on. Something tells me he's even going beyond political books into the whodunit realm. So let's find out. Mark, welcome. Tell us what you've been up to, pal.
Hey, Bob, how are you?
I'm good.
Glad to hear that, man.
Yeah.
We were just discussing off air about the golden years.
Yeah.
I'm,
Tell me about it.
I'm beginning to wonder myself whether or not that's an actual a thing.
Yeah, my wife says that they're the rust years, and I agree with her. Oh, man. I'll tell you what, I woke up the other day, I could hardly stand up straight. My back hurts so bad. Oh, geez. So
Back,
when
back.
we get done here, I'm going out into my hot tub. And
That's a good idea.
yeah,
At least you have one.
yep. Yeah.
Anyway, the question you asked me was, "What's going on?"
Yeah, what's going on?
The answer is that
Yes.
I've got a new book coming out.
That's nothing new.
Yeah,
The
that's
number of books you've been cranking out, man. What are you up
I've
to
been
now? 8 or something?
I've been rather prolific.
Yes, you have.
I think I'm up to 11 now. Between the
Oh,
cookbook and the children's books,
oh yeah, yeah.
there's
I forgot
there's
about the cookbook and the children's books.
there's 8 Blake novels. There's this new cozy mystery that I just wrote that we're going to talk about today.
Uh-huh.
There's 2 children's books and there's the Jewish cookbook.
You
I just
received a bunch of awards for some of this stuff, right? Tell me
I
about those awards.
I've been honored by several different organizations. I just received for my last book, You Have the Right to Remain Silent. I just received an Independent Press Award, and I received a Reader's View silver medal, which is, I guess, second place.
Wow.
I don't know what they were thinking. Um,
Yeah, why did you get the gold?
but that book has gotten multiple awards. That book, by the way, inspired this new book. And as we've discussed on previous shows, my first 7 Zachary Blake novels had a kind of a political social justice slant to them.
Yeah.
The 8th book, You Have the Right to Remain Silent, was, even though it featured a Republican political radio show host and a Democratic congressman who gets murdered, and the woman who hosts the show, his wife, or Mary Madeline, James Carville kind of thing. In You Have the Right to Remain Silent, the congressman gets murdered. The radio commentator is accused of his murder, and it's a whodunit.
Uh,
Once you get beyond the politics, it's a Agatha Christie type whodunit.
okay.
And I enjoyed writing it so much that I decided I would move away from Zachary Blake for a second, go to Northern Michigan and write a book that features a former judge who
Okay.
decides to become an investigator so that she can prove her best friend innocent of a murder.
Where'd you get the
And
idea for this book?
it just out of my warped mind,
Out of
I
your
um,
warped mind? Yeah.
I wrote the whodunit in You Have the Right to Remain Silent, and I enjoyed it, so I decided I'd write a second one.
Okay.
And it was an interesting experience and a nice little book. I enjoyed it, and
Okay.
she's a good character.
Okay.
I enjoyed writing her.
Okay. All right. Who'd you pattern her after?
The protagonist of the book is a former judge, Rosalind Maxwell.
Yeah.
She is retired from the circuit court bench in Michigan.
Uh,
She's written a book about prison,
okay.
over sentencing, and people being falsely accused and put in prison incorrectly, and the effect that has on society and on the lives of these innocent people. She's about to embark on a book tour, and coincidentally enough, her best friend, Tyler Guthrie, is the president of a fictional college in Harbor Springs, Michigan.
Okay.
And he invites her to lecture. It's the first stop on her book tour. He invites her to lecture about her new book. And while she's there, a popular law professor gets murdered on the campus. Now, coincidentally enough, Bob, I wrote the book and was about to finish it when the Idaho murders happened.
Okay.
I didn't have any clue that an actual campus murder would happen. And my book is not in any way, shape, or form a serial killer, multiple murder of students book. It's a book about the murder of a law professor. But I couldn't help but notice the irony of writing a book like this and then having the Iowa and having what happened in Iowa.
All right. Well, that's really interesting. Now, you said on the one hand that the book is not at all political, but on the other hand, you have the judge who is writing a book that is political, and it's about political issues that you write about and really care about, right?
That is true.
Unwittingly, perhaps, you brought in these issues and found a way to write about them, even in a whodunit novel.
Even when I'm not writing about it.
Even when you're not writing about it, you wrote
I
about
get
it.
I
Yeah,
guess you could
that's
I guess you could certainly compare it to using a Democratic congressman and a Republican commentator, radio host,
yeah.
and you have the right to remain silent.
It really sounds like a fascinating story, Mark. It really does.
She gets invited to speak at this local college.
Yeah.
She's kind of new at this, and she having anxiety over having to public speak.
Yeah.
The speaking engagement goes well. She finishes it. She's planning on having a quiet evening before she has to go on to her next event, and she gets a phone call from her best friend that there's been a murder on campus. Who, by the way, she has met this gentleman at her event, and her friend Tyler and Professor Johnstone, the victim, get into an altercation, a verbal spat right in front of Rosalind. And Tyler obviously doesn't like this man very much. And of course, the person he gets into the spat with ends up dead. So Tyler becomes the principal suspect of the Harbor Springs police. And Rosalind decides she's going to do her best to exonerate him.
Oh,
He becomes not only the suspect, but he's arrested and jailed. And it's her job, because the cops don't want to focus on anybody else but Tyler. It's her job to find the real killer.
but during the course of that, she received a bunch of death threats.
She receives a couple of anonymous death threats,
Mhm.
warning her to stay away from the investigation. She's not going to do that because Tyler's a good friend of hers and she wants to find proof of his innocence. And again, it introduces, as most cozy mysteries do, it introduces multiple people throughout the novel potential suspects, potential clues. As I indicated, it was a fun book to write, and it's a fun book to read.
Okay, so who did kill Professor Johnstone?
Say that again.
Who killed?
Well,
Who
read the
did kill
book.
the guy?
Read the book. It might have been Tyler. It might have been Tyler.
You mean you're not going to share that information with us?
No, no. You got to wait till the end, and you got to read the book. Are you
Okay.
one of those people that reads the book from back to front?
No, I don't like to do that.
I know a lot of people who do that. I don't
I,
understand that.
I don't like to do that. I don't like to find out what's, especially a mystery. And I love mysteries. I read a ton of mysteries. My favorite, my favorite genre. I just love, especially legal thrillers. That's why I like your books, Mark.
You'll enjoy these two. If you haven't read You Have the Right to Remain Silent, right?
No, I haven't. No,
Okay, so
I need
you'll enjoy both of those books
I
if you
need
like.
both of these books desperately.
You got it, buddy.
Okay, okay. Now, now,
You just saved me some shipping costs because I think I can ship two of them
that's
as
just
well.
fine. You're all over that. That's fine.
Yeah.
Now, you tell me, what about these other books that we haven't talked at all on a show about your children's books, about your cookbook? We, if you got anything else going on, I don't know about, but now's a good time to let the people know what your other projects have been and what's available and all that.
Okay. I have two children's books.
Yeah.
One is currently available on Amazon and other online booksellers, Barnes and Noble, Kobo, Apple.
Mhm.
It's called Happy Jack, Sad Jack, a bullying story.
Yeah.
It's won some awards, including the Mom's Choice Gold Award, which is it's an organization run by mothers
Yeah.
of small children, and they gave me the gold medal. So that was cool.
That is just excellent. And I have to tell you, I read that book. I really liked it.
It's a nice little book. The topic obviously is heavy, but it's written in a way that a young child can read it, enjoy it, not be traumatized by it, yet learn a very important lesson.
Do you think the Republicans will let it be carried in the school libraries after
Well,
all?
I can't answer that question. I would imagine that they might find the book to be, quote, woke, unquote. I don't know. My favorite quote in the movie, I was going to say, in the book,
Well, maybe there will be a movie. You never know.
it goes like this.
Yeah.
People are different in color, shape, size, ears, noses, mouths, and different shaped eyes.
Yeah.
Different races and genders, more too. We're Christian or Buddhist or Muslim or Jew. But there's one thing in common we all have in this place. We are all valued members of this human race. Now, maybe that's too woke for a Republican. I don't know.
Oh, you know what? Too woke. You know what? I just had somebody do a blog for the Lean to the Left blog site on talking about woke and what the hell is it, and the fact that the Republicans use it all the time, but half of them don't even know what it means.
I think it's an invented word. I don't know that anybody, quote, knows what it means. The What's interesting here in Florida, where I am right now, you mentioned writing a blog. If you write a blog that says Ron DeSantis is anti-woke and wishes to ban certain books from Florida schools, there's a new bill that he's trying to get passed in Florida that if you want to criticize Ron DeSantis, you have to get permission to write a blog in Florida.
What?
Look it up, my friend. If you want to write an article about Ron DeSantis, you have to get his permission. You think that's going to pass constitutional muster?
Oh, sure.
It might in Florida, but if when it hits the United States Supreme Court,
Yeah.
that law is out of here.
Yeah.
That's called a prior restraint, which is not kosher. But anyway, Jack is a kindergartner. He's a biracial child. He's lived a rather sheltered life for his first 5 years.
Hmm.
He goes to school and realizes other kids because a little white kid comes and pushes him in the playground just because he's different than the other children. And the book basically tells the story of how a school and a community should come together and defend a child from being bullied. It's illustrated by M.T. Faugust, a friend of mine. She's a very talented illustrator and an author of children's books herself. And it's just a nice little story that I think would be a good tale for a teacher to use to introduce young children. And that's the reason I wrote it, to teach young children that bullying is not a good thing to do.
Now, do you plan on expanding the use of this book by speaking to schools and kids and doing events and that kind of thing?
Yes, I would love to do that. Difficult arena to break into. There are people who, for lack of a better way to say it, specialize in writing books that they introduce to elementary schools. But I'm working on it. You and I are working on a project to create an audio version of the book so that we can introduce it to elementary schools across the country.
Okay. Okay. By the way, while you were talking, I pulled up the blog that, do you remember Dr. Pamela Gurley?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
she was on, I think she was on both of our shows, and she writes an occasional blog for my Lean to the Left blog site. Dr. Gurley is the person who wrote this piece about the culture war over woke policies. And she says, just as an interesting point of view or point of information, she says the term woke has its roots in African American vernacular English and was originally used as slang to describe a person who is socially aware and conscious of injustice. Now, it seems to me that if that's the case, how is it that the Republicans even knew about it?
Well, not only that, but thank you very much. If
Yeah,
you want to, if that's the definition, and you want to accuse me of being woke,
yeah,
I I
have have at it.
I graciously accept and thank you for the
Yeah,
compliment.
me too, 100%. Yeah, so if anyone would like to just check that out, it's at leantotheleft.net.
I I don't think that's the way they are interpreting or using the term woke
Oh,
in a
it's
compliment.
not. It's not. That's a complimentary use of it, and they're turning it into a negative.
No, but how have they usurped a term that is a complimentary term and turned it into a negative?
That's the way
What
they do everything. They turn everything backwards, the Republicans and Trump.
it's just what's troubling, Bob. And again, take politics out of it.
Yeah,
I, just what I don't understand is why it's fashionable or popular to not be nice to people,
I know.
tolerant of people,
I know.
uh, reach out a hand in friendship instead of a fist in opposition.
Yeah,
It just seems to me that a lot of the problems in America today could be solved by simply talking to each other and being nicer to each other. And that's what Happy Jack is about. It's about
yeah,
taking a kid that might be a little different and treating him like with respect and dignity like you would want others to treat you.
yeah, yeah,
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
yeah. I just wanted to say, Mark, you wrote that book in rhyme, and it is just so beautifully done. I didn't know a lawyer had the ability to switch modes and be able to write that.
Thank you, Adam.
Don't
It
you
was
want to
something.
smack me for that backhanded compliment about
No,
lawyers?
no, no. I think it was a very nice thing you said. I got what you said. I just choo- I choose I choose to listen to the nice part of it rather than.
Okay. You know what? Since we talked about Happy Jack, Fat Jack, anybody happy about reading your cookbook? We'll hear about that in just a minute when we come back after this message.
Not very many people have read it, but everybody that has read it has enjoyed it.
That's good. That's good. So, does it have what, family recipes and things like that?
I'll tell you, the way that came about
Yeah.
is I am a member of a very large Jewish family from Poland on my mother's side and Russia on my father's side.
Okay.
And obviously, I don't need to tell you, if you look at the generational issues there, on my mother's side, most of my relatives were escaping the Nazis.
Right.
On my father's side, most of my relatives were escaping the pogroms.
Okay.
So, in either place, Jews were not very welcome. My mother's family has a very large family club that got started in the Detroit area where I live after several of the family members left,
Mhm.
and they started what was known as the Rothenberg Family Club.
Okay.
On the 75th anniversary of the club, which happened a few years ago, they produced this pamphlet which had a bunch of recipes in it, the Rothenberg Family Cookbook. And the recipes are just outstanding, wonderful recipes.
Okay.
And I added a few of my wife's and a few of my father's family's recipes. And I decided it would be fun to create Zachary Blake's family recipe.
Okay.
So I invented the name of his mother's family and called them the Lewin family. And obviously his name is Blake. His father's family is the Blake family. So I created the Blake Lewin family cookbook and used my own family's recipes in the cookbook.
Okay.
Then I decided there's some funny stories in my family that I could tell in this book about my aunts and my uncles and cousins and so on. And then there are some stories I can make up and have some fun. So I took some family stories and some made up stories, combined them into a rather cute little funny book. In addition to recipes, I introduce each recipe by introducing the person who cooked the recipe or whose recipe it is.
Okay.
And that makes for a funny little book. And
Oh, that's
it was
interesting.
enjoyable to write.
That's interesting. So that's also of it. What's the name of the book?
That's called it's called Lador because if you recall, I wrote a Holocaust survival memoir, a called Lador Vador, from generation to generation. And I thought, okay, from generation to generation is a great way to describe what this cookbook is about because
Hmm.
it's a generational cookbook. So I called it Lador Vador from generation to generation two, the Blake Lewin family cookbook, Jewish family cookbook. And as I indicated, it has some funny stories in it and some great recipes, and it was very enjoyable to write.
Okay. So here is a guy who he writes a series of legal thrillers, Zachary Blake legal thrillers, 8 of them. And then he produces this family cookbook. based on his recipes from his family, and was able to weave in some information and some stories about his family. And and then he switches gears, writes a kid's book in rhyme, and he does it to talk about bullying, a hugely important topic. And then he turns around and he writes another damn novel, this time a whodunit that has nothing to do really with any of the political issues that he typically writes about, except that he has this judge who the judge wrote a book, right? Yeah, she's written a
Yes, yes,
fascinating new book and invited to speak at a local So yeah,
correct.
so she wrote this book and weaves in that book some of the very political issues that Mark likes to talk about, justice. And so he can't get away from that. He just can't.
It's been the topic of my life, that's for sure. By the way, there's also a new children's book in the works. The book is written. Melinda, my illustrator, is still doing the illustration, so that's the reason that book is not. That book, by the way, is about distracted driving and how doing two things at once is not always a good thing to do.
Oh, wow. When do you have time to take a breath, Bal? Writing takes a long time.
So, yes, it does. I'm enjoying myself. We were discussing off the air about how the senior years causes the body to break down. What I'm trying to do here is keep my mind active while my body's begins to fail.
You know what, Mark? That's the reason why I do my blog, and that's the reason why I do my podcast.
Yep.
And it's just an incredible experience to be able to talk to so many interesting people all over, really, literally all over the world, and share some of their insight and stories and so on and so forth. It's an extremely satisfying thing to do. And as far as I'm concerned, it's made my retirement years go really quickly because I'm just enjoying that. And it's been a real pleasure too to you were one of my first guests when I first started this thing. And now we've been working together on your Justice Counts podcast. What, for a couple years now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it. It's funny. I consider you a friend. I consider you a mentor, a partner. And you and I have never actually physically met,
No,
have
is it? That's amazing. That's really amazing. Okay. Mark, so your books, they're, I presume, available on Amazon, anywhere else.
all the books are available on Amazon. The first five are available in audio.
Okay.
The other online booksellers, Barnes and Noble, Kobo, Apple, all carry my books. But the big Goliath in the room is Amazon. So they are available on Amazon.
Okay. Okay, so that's great. Got anything else you want to tell us about before we sign off?
I'm working on a new Zachary Blake, which I don't know when that'll come out. And I'm working also on a legal romance novel, of all things. I'm trying to mix it up a little.
Romance.
Legal romance. It's got to have a legal slant to it. Just like my cozy mystery is a cozy legal mystery. I've got a copy of it here.
Okay.
It's an author's proof, but
Right.
there's the book. Is it backwards?
That's beautiful. No, it's fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
it's fine.
as you can see, it says cozy legal mystery, and the same thing with a romance novel. I'm gonna write a. I've written about 100 pages. I'm gonna write a legal romance novel.
Okay, that sounds interesting.
I'm having a good time.
You must be. I'm telling you what. All right. Okay, Mark. I appreciate you sharing all this with us, and I hope you guys watching on both Lean to the Left and Justice Counts. Check out Mark's books. They're really good.
Thanks, Bob. I appreciate it.
Now, just one more break, and I'll be back in a couple of seconds with some closing comments. Thanks, everyone, for listening. If you haven't done so already, please check out Mark Bello's Ripped from the Headlines Legal Thrillers, all available online at Amazon and other major online booksellers. He has quite the hero in attorney Zachary Blake, who fights for justice on all fronts. His books are Betrayal of Faith, Betrayal of Justice, Betrayal in Blue, Betrayal in Black, Betrayal High, Supreme Betrayal, Betrayal at the Border, You Have the Right to Remain Silent, and a wonderful children's book about bullying, Happy Jack, Sad Jack. For more information, just check out markmbello.com. And remember, he has several new books coming out soon. Until next time, this is Bob Gaddy for Mark Bello, signing off from Justice Counts.